send up will keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark blues.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Blue Sunday on this Sunday. That's why it's called Blue Sunday.
We're back on Sunday, Joe.
I hope so. All day, Vince, all day. As everyone knows, my name is Joseph Luzza, or if you watch the Jumper Punch, aka Bangkok Joe. So I'm coming to you from Bangkok, Thailand. And as usual tonight, joining me in, is it sunny, Vince, or cold Melbourne?
It was pretty sunny today, but it's still pretty cold too. So, yes, we're still very much in the middle of winter here.
In our Melbourne studios, I've got a former president of the Carltonians, member of the Carlton Football Club, Mr. Vince Loccisano. Welcome, Vince. How are you tonight?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I'm pretty well, mate, and it's good to see you. And yes, we're having in a row now 9 Carlton supporters celebrating long and hard into the weekend, and especially I noticed a massive contingent of Carlton supporters up there on the Gold Coast supporting the boys this weekend. There was more noise seemingly made by the Carlton supporters than what there was Gold Coast supporters up there. So I suppose that might not be that hard to do, but nevertheless, great to see everyone celebrating, and another great win. And you know, we probably got a little bit of fortune running our way at the moment, the last few weeks, but nevertheless, winning form is good form, and we go into the last round next week, hoping to make it 10 in a row.
Okay. Well, look, before we get into this weekend's of matches, let's get rid of the administration first. So, as people know, we are a Facebook, YouTube show. So please, please, please give us a like, share, and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, we're at Blue Sunday. And if you're on YouTube, I nearly didn't get it then. We are on the Jumper Punch channel. For those asking, we are not on X, the old Twitter. I will get to that soon. I'm not that great at this new modern technology, but I don't know if it's any good.
We don't need to be in that cesspit for keyboard warriors. Surely not.
No. Anyway, so essentially, this is a show that looks at the round of matches. We concentrate on the Carlton match. So please give us a like, subscribe, and share. It helps us immensely. Also, if you'd like to be part of the show, please feel free to make some comments and questions. As everyone knows, soon enough, our special guest commentator, Mr. Peter Brown, will be joining us. He'll be more than happy to share his insight. The one thing we like about Peter is he's honest. Sometimes people don't like it. Sometimes people do. But that's what you get when you want Peter. You get honesty, and that's what this show's about. Please get in there. Also, last but not least, I'd just like to let you know the show is brought to you by my company who are sponsoring it, Retired Working For You Tours. You can see us there, and it's www.rw4tours.com. We specialize in tours of Thailand. We have 3 specific tours, but if there's one that you don't like, or you want something specific, or you're looking for hotels, recommendations, where to eat, beaches to go, I am more than happy to help you. Anyway, Vince, we've got all that rubbish out the way. So this was round 23. And I get the Scots mixed up. Brad Scott, is he the one at Essendon?
Yes.
It's a long season. He was complaining about playing extra matches before we'd even played it. Well, I got one thing
I don't
to
think
say.
That was a good message for his players. I think he was almost
I got one thing to
giving
say
them
to
an
him.
excuse before they lost yesterday.
Yeah, well, they played yesterday like they belong in the AFL. Not. Anyway, before we get into the matches, got a couple of funny memes and photos. So the first one, here's the meme of the week.
I like this one.
That is probably me. These things are weird. Apparently, they can stay in one spot for hours without moving. So I think For those of you old enough, like probably me and Vince and probably Peter, it's the old Norm. I don't know if you remember those cartoons.
Yes, the life be in it ads.
Yeah,
that,
Norm. So,
Norm used to
there's
be
a
on the
take on
couch
that.
drinking his beer. Yeah.
And for all you Essendon scum supporters, the loudest sounds on earth. I just add another 365 to that bottom one, the number of days that Essendon have played in a winning game. And I like Eddie Murphy there. You can't lose a final if you don't make them.
That's true.
Never a
Yes,
truer
well,
word.
they won't be losing another final for at least another year. That's for sure.
That's fantastic to see. Anyway, some few funny photos. I agree with this bloke. Public holiday if the Blues win the Premiership. They're going to have it for the Matildas.
Don't start this rubbish. Well, every time someone wins something, we're going to have a public holiday. I mean,
good enough
all
for
of these pathetic politicians who try and go on these vote buying exercises by promising public holidays if an Australian sporting team wins something. This country's getting beyond the joke.
Vince, it's not political, it's a joke. So
I know it is, but I mean,
look
honestly.
where he's standing. He's standing at the front of the AFL. He's not even being political. But that guy, I love him, whoever he is. If you are watching, drop us a note. Yeah. And there was a comment, thanks to DJ Rash.
Yes.
Thanks, DJ Rash. You can read it there. My missus could cheat on me with Charlie and I'd say sorry. So there you go. Apparently, that man in the photo is someone's saying it's Daniel Gorringe. I don't know.
Oh, surely not.
If it is Daniel Gorringe, yes, he was a former Carlton player.
Yeah, he was a very, very significant failed Carlton player that we recruited from the Gold Coast, and he did absolutely sweet FA when he was at Carlton. But now all of a sudden he's, got a media career and he was on Big Brother or something. And give me a spell. I don't need to listen to people like him. Anyway,
all right. So let's get to the footy. First game.
Why don't we do that?
Oh, this warms the cockles of my hearts. The Collie Wobbles, they're back. They've been unburied.
Oh my goodness! 4 losses out of the last 5 rounds, and guess where all the rot started, Joe?
The Blue Baggers.
That's right. So this was a good game to watch, especially if you don't like Collingwood. I watched it on Friday night. It was a very good result for us.
Beautiful.
In the end, the Brisbane Lions showed their class. Geez, they moved the ball well. It's just a delight to watch this team in full flight, honestly. Beware the Lions in the finals because obviously, all they've got to do is get over St Kilda next week and they will get a home final. And if they win that, then they'll get another home final in the prelims and won't have to play anywhere else until grand final day if they win both of those matches. So their odds will be reducing all the time for a spot in the grand final, especially with the likelihood of playing 2 home finals at the Gabba, their fortress, where they've hardly lost a game in about 3 years. Anyway, the Brisbane Lions 19-10, 124 to Collingwood 15-10, 100. That continues Brisbane's good run at Marvel Stadium, and Collingwood now, I think they've only won 5 out of their last 11 at that venue.
Vince, who cares?
They clearly prefer the MCG.
Then on Saturday, we had a couple of three champions retiring.
Yes, well, we have Richmond doing the right thing by their retiring champions. You've got the Tigers finishing on 14-17, 101. It was a pretty good game at stages, and North Melbourne really took it up to them. They were only, 9 points down at three-quarter time, but did not kick a goal in the last quarter. 10 goals, 12-72, so 29 points to the Tigers, and they certainly did the right thing by Jack Revolt and Trent Cotchin, etc.
Okay, before we move on, I don't know if you guys heard what happened on Saturday night. So Jack Zeeble was out celebrating his last game, and apparently one of his teammates got into some trouble or something outside. And with his wife watching on, he got king hit, and then these guys decided to lay in the boots. We can talk to Peter about this a bit later. we can talk to Peter about this a bit later, what it's like being a player. I'm sure he probably got harassed. There's always some hero that wants to be a big man in front of his mates. All I got to say is, if you go in and hit someone unarmed or whatever, you're just gutless, right?
You're a coward. Yeah.
And especially when someone's down and then three of them lay in. I hope you get caught. And probably, the courts will probably throw it out with a good behaviour bond. And that's why we continue to have this violence, So it's just BS. You want to come over to this country, you get caught belting someone, the cops belt you first. I've seen it on the street. And they don't care if you're a man or a woman. You attack a policeman and they really lay into you. And the law protects the cops. So anyway, let's move along.
All right, the next game we're going to cover.
This one was better than a porn movie. If I got excited on Friday night, I love the comparison. Magnificent.
Oh, Joe, obviously you're really into porn movies. Anyway,
forget that.
Yes,
I'm just going to watch this all
massacre.
The time.
It was a massacre. Let's be honest. I don't know if there's any other way to describe it, but the GWS Giants 25 goals, 12, coasting to the line 162, smashing Essendon 5 goals, 636, and that is the end of the season for the Bombers.
It is. Good riddance. Next.
Next is, this is a game I got wrong. I thought Geelong would, find everything they had in their artillery, I guess, against the Saints, the reigning premiers. And this was their big chance to beat St Kilda and then go and play the final game at home next week to make the finals. But no, they just did not look hungry enough at all. In fact, St Kilda were the team that looked really hungry here. And they very much deserve their spot in the finals. 12-16, 88. Probably should have won by a lot more if you have a look at their inaccurate kicking there. Geelong, 8-7, 55. Almost half the scoring shots of St Kilda. And I think the scoreboard flattered Geelong in the end. They should have lost, in my opinion, by about 10 goals.
Should have. Next, we had. Now, this was the controversial. So go and celebrate the goal when it was a point. I still cannot tell whether it's a goal or a point. I think
no, they've already shown footage of it. And Gillan McLaughlin came out today and admitted, yes, that it was a mistake by the goal umpire. It should have been reviewed, and it wasn't reviewed. If it did go to a review, he stated that it would have overturned the decision. Absolutely robbed blind Adelaide Crows. And for that goal umpire to make that call without going to a review is a disgrace. And for the field umpires not to make it go to a review is a disgrace. And this competition is fast becoming a joke. That's 2 weeks in a row. And I'm talking about the Carlton-Melbourne game because I've had a really good look at that one. And I'm sorry, I'm not convinced that ball was touched at all. The ball never deviated. That ball that Caleb Marchbank allegedly got a fingernail to. As far as I'm concerned, they both should have been called goals. And, the Adelaide Crows have got every right to be absolutely filthy on that. And Sydney, they can count themselves extremely lucky to have been given and awarded that game of football. So, look, what does it say about the technology we've got? What does it say about the processes we've got? What does it say about the standard of umpiring we've got? Sorry, but this competition's just so full of compromises, so full of mistakes that continue to happen. I'm sorry. It's not good enough. It's unacceptable. And it's okay for people to say, get over it, Vince, because we won. I'll tell you right now, if it was us that was on the receiving end, we'd be absolutely filthy like the opposition are. So don't give me that bullshit. That's crap. We've got to fix the system. Whether we're on the right side of the umpiring decisions or the wrong side, it's not the way you want to win, and it's not the way the competition should run. It's a disgrace. The AFL is a disgrace. Under Gillan McLaughlin, you can't leave early enough. Piss off. It's been a disaster ever since you became the CEO.
Let's move on, Vince. Not political show. Let's go today.
No, don't
big
no,
upset.
sorry, Joe. What do you mean it's not a political show? I'm expressing an opinion. You express your opinions. I'm expressing mine. I'm filthy on this. It's pathetic. All right?
What can you do about it, Vince? You can't do anything.
It's not a matter of what you can do about it. I can't do anything as one person about it, but that doesn't mean I'm not entitled to express an opinion when there's a platform like this to express it, right? And you and I have an obligation to call this sort of shit out. It's rubbish. Next.
Well, I've put this. It's been up for a couple of minutes.
Right. Oh, well, this is today. What an upset this was. I mean, this could very well cost the Western Bulldogs a spot in the 8, because if they don't beat Geelong next Saturday night and then Carlton don't beat GWS, that will cost them a spot in the 8. They've got to hope that they can win against Geelong and that we beat GWS next Sunday night. So it's not all in their own hands now. They could have made it all in their own hands if they had beaten the West Coast today, but I don't know. What does it say about them and what does it say about West Coast? I mean, that's a fantastic comeback after being smashed last week by over 100 points against Fremantle from the West Coast Eagles. You've got to give them credit. They must have played pretty well today. 14 goals, 8-92. To the Western Bulldogs, you just have to shake your head. 12-13-85. And I'll tell you what, if they don't make the finals, I'll make a little bold prediction here, Joe. I reckon there might be some rumblings about the coaching position at the Western Bulldogs at the end of this year if they don't make the finals.
Well, the rumour was that West Coast were going to have a press conference on Tuesday to announce the sacking of Adam Simpson. So,
how can they do that after a performance
I don't know.
like this?
So,
I can't see that happening.
I can't see
that happening.
Apparently, to pay him out, it's going to cost him $6 million.
No, come on. There's 2 years left on his contract. He's not getting $3 million a year, surely.
No, but he's been there like 10 years. There's long service.
That doesn't. Oh, no, that's not.
Well, apparently,
$6 million.
I was listening to his manager this morning on the radio, and his manager said that if he was to be paid out, there would be a figure of around $6 million.
Well, that to me does not sound. That does not sound right for 2 years worth of work. That's more money than what the CEO of the AFL's on, and he certainly doesn't deserve. He's $2.5 million a year. I can tell you that.
He deserves $5 million, Vince.
It's pathetic that he gets anywhere near that sort of money. Anyway, next.
Vince is fired up today. This one, I was barracking for Hawthorn, but they just couldn't go on with it.
Yeah. Well, look, Melbourne showed again that they have got the sort of stuff that gets the job done in matches like this, where they could very well have rolled over and got done today, because there were signs at various stages of this game that they looked in danger of dropping it and possibly dropping a top 4 position if they got done next week. But they made sure of it, and they came good in Max Gorman's 200th game and ended up comfortably winning 13 goals, 9-87 to Hawthorn, 9-6-60. And that's a very good, solid win by the Demons. And they've just secured themselves at least 4th position, potentially 3rd or 2nd, depending on the results of next week.
There you go, Vince. It's $6 million because of soft cap tax. It's 200% of his contract, $2 million plus $4 million tax.
Yeah, righto. Since when is tax for twice as much as what you earn?
I don't know. Anyway, moving on. And the last game that just wrapped up.
Just finished not long ago, yes. So this was the one at Optus Stadium in Perth. And again, another side that's had some challenges thrown at it lately, but has come good at the right time. Port Adelaide, 11 goals, 874, overcoming the Fremantle Dockers, their last game at home this year. 8 goals, 10, 58 in what has been a fairly disappointing season for them after finishing in the finals last year. They are going to finish in the bottom 4 or 5 teams on the ladder, by the looks of it.
Okay. So before we show the scores of the Carlton game and start critically analysing it, can I introduce to you the man you've known for all these years? Oh, no, that's the Beatles song. Mr. Peter Brown, 1979 former Premiership player. How are you, Pete?
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Vince. And good evening to our viewers.
You're sitting
G'day, Brownie. Apparently I'm all fired up today.
Yeah, do you like Vince all
well,
fired up?
I've been sitting backstage listening to your editorial, Vince, and
A rant.
It looks like you've got pretty well fired up about it. And I was actually having a discussion about this today. It's certainly wrong if there is a decision that has far-reaching implications on whether a side can make the final series or whether it can't. So this is becoming pretty controversial in today's game. I think we discussed this quickly last week, where I think the human error is now starting to come into question, and I believe that goal umpire has been suspended because.
Yeah, but that's just a typical scapegoat. I mean, they haven't fixed the problem.
Yeah,
they haven't fixed the technology. They haven't fixed the process of what should happen in a situation like that, where they should go up to, up to the third umpire to get a verdict on it. I mean, how many other decisions in a match go up to the third umpire? And yet this one, right at the end of the game, within a whisker of the post, doesn't go up. How does that happen?
Vince, maybe, just maybe, Gillan McLaughlin shouldn't pay himself that much money and invest some of that money in a bloody system that works, like they have in tennis and in soccer. But, no, we can't do that. Yeah. Anyway.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point. Anyway, I'll be interested to hear what Brownie has to say on some of these issues, because I just think our competition, with a compromised draw and all sorts of other inconsistencies, it becomes a joke. It really does. Some teams play the lower teams twice each, and then other teams don't play them more than once each, and it just, I don't know, it's just all wrong. And then you got this crazy score review system, and it's just rubbish.
Without taking up too much time, I think that if it's going to be truly a national competition, then they have to play each other twice for the year. I just don't. I mean, that's the only fair way to do it, and then there's no questions about it.
Maybe we can bring these up in the bye week. We can talk about some of the issues that we think need to be addressed, like technology, fixturing, drafting, stuff like that. Maybe that's something that we can talk about as well. Anyway, on Saturday, we saw the mighty Blue Boys. There he is, King Charlie. Go
yes,
Vince.
indeed. Indeed, it was King Charlie's day. I mean,
that's
unbelievable performance by Charlie Curnow to get Carlton over the line, literally get us over the line on his back.
That's the wrong score.
That's last week's score, Joe. I don't know what you did with that one.
Oh. Is it?
And it's last week's team.
Oh, I got it off the anyway. That's all right.
Anyway, the goal. It was in the end, Carlton 13 goals, 13.91. A show wouldn't be a show without Joe making a blue here and there.
I thought it looked a bit slow. Sorry, I did this at the hospital, so I'm very sorry.
That's all right. When are you going to be better? 13.91 to Gold Coast, 13.987.
They said there's no cure, Vince.
Our second consecutive 4-point victory, when both of them could easily have been 1-point losses. Last week due to an umpiring decision. This week because of a shot for goal that could have easily ended up being a goal by the Gold Coast player that snapped it round his body. But I think it was Noah Anderson, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In the end, it was on the wrong side of the post. So it went through for a point. Instead of a goal, that would have put him 1 point in front. But in the end, we win by 4 points. So, an exciting game, a game of momentum, really. Momentum shifts. The biggest ones, of course, being the first quarter to Gold Coast and the second quarter to us. If you have a look at the quarter-by-quarter scores, I mean, Gold Coast was 6-5-41 to Carlton 1-2-8 at quarter time. They then kicked the first goal of the second quarter. They actually got up to 7-6-48 to Carlton 1-2-8 at one stage. They were 40 points in front. And then Carlton proceeded to kick the next 6 goals, 3 to 1 point for the rest of that quarter, and caught up to be within 2 points at half time, 7-7-49 to 7-5-47. After that, it was a bit of an arm wrestle. The third quarter, we had a lot of the ball and a lot of momentum, but we just couldn't put it on the scoreboard.
Yeah,
I mean, in the end, we kicked 1 goal, 7, and they kicked 2 goals straight. So we only outscored them by a point. So they were actually in front at three-quarter time by a point, 9-7-61 to Carlton, 8-12-60. But in the end, as I said, we kicked that vital goal. Again, Charlie Curnow and Matty Owies also putting us, I think, 7 points in front at that stage before, or maybe even 8 points in front before the Gold Coast came back with a goal. 13-13-91 to 13-9-87 in the end. And the goal kickers for Carlton were Charlie Curnow with 5 goals, 1. Jack Martin with 2 goals, 2. Jesse Motlop with 2 goals, 2. And Matty Owies with 2 goals, 2. Mackay and Cottrell both had 1 goal each. So they were the goal kickers for Carlton. For the Gold Coast Suns, it was Swallow with 4 goals, Sexton and Ainsworth 2, and then they had another 5 players with 1 goal each. So,
all right.
Yes, that was the major details of that game. And when you're ready, we can go through the ladder, Joe, because we haven't done that yet.
Well, yeah.
Oh, here we are, straight away.
So there it is.
Great minds think alike. Well, you can see there the ladder shows that despite losing another game, Collingwood are still on top of the ladder, only by a game now, and their percentage is literally exactly the same as the team underneath them, the Brisbane Lions, who have 1 less win,
isn't it?
On 64. So if Collingwood happens to drop next week's game against Essendon, mind you, it looks like Essendon's just about checked out and put the queue in the rack based on the way they performed yesterday. But if Collingwood were to lose that game, they may even lose the first position on the ladder. Not that that's going to make a huge difference because they still get the double chance and a home final.
And Melbourne's
but more to the point, I think they just want to get a win on the board just to go into the finals with some winning form. Anyway, Collingwood are on 68, Brisbane on 64, Port Adelaide on 64. Their percentage is vastly underneath Brisbane Lions. So to get a second position in a home final, Port Adelaide would need St Kilda to beat Brisbane in Brisbane next week. That's no mean feat. Melbourne have secured 4th position with that win today over Hawthorn. And they've got a very healthy percentage. In fact, the best one of all at 124.8. So if Brisbane or Port Adelaide were to lose next week, Melbourne would rise up the ladder at least 1 spot, maybe even 2. After that, you've got Carlton securing 5th position for the time being.
Not necessarily, yeah, for
the time being on 54 points with that win over Gold Coast. If we had have lost that game, we would have relinquished 5th temporarily, at least to St Kilda. But we do remain ahead of St Kilda, 54 to 52. Then Sydney on 50. It's amazing how many positions are separated by half a game here, considering the draws that have been played this year. Sydney on 50 have secured also a finals position. So isn't that an amazing performance by Sydney, even though I don't think they should have won last night's game due to that ridiculous umpiring call. But anyway, they are now guaranteed of a spot in the finals. And depending on how the results go next weekend, you never know. They might even end up with a home final, because if Carlton happens to drop its game to GWS, or if St Kilda happens to drop its game to Brisbane and Sydney happen to beat Melbourne, well, then Sydney would go up at least 1, if not 2 positions on the ladder. GWS are on 48, holding down 8th position, which everyone thought that they'd be relinquishing by the end of today because they thought that the Western Bulldogs would be easily able to account for West Coast. But as we found out, that was the big upset of the round. So the Bulldogs now outside the 8 on 44, Essendon on 44, no realistic chance of making it. Even if they beat Collingwood next week, their percentage just will not allow them to get in. And officially out is now Geelong, Richmond, both on 42, Adelaide on 40. You do feel for the Adelaide Crows if they had been given that game, or if they had been awarded that game, their percentage was very healthy. They would have been at least challenging for a spot in the 8 by next week.
Well, they'd be ninth. Look at their percentage.
They'd be ninth, yeah. And if GWS got beaten, they'd be in the 8 by the end of the round. But anyway, Fremantle on 36, Gold Coast 36, Hawthorn 28. West Coast now are off the bottom. They've gone to second bottom now with 12 points. And North Melbourne are bringing up the rear on 8 points, and they play Gold Coast next week. And who knows? They might get another win and get back off the bottom. Who knows? Depends on
And
how much they want their number one draft pick.
And as Vince says, St Kilda and Sydney qualify for the finals.
Yeah, well, and they'll probably end up playing each other, Sydney and St Kilda, you would think.
They might.
But it's just, it all depends on who beats who next weekend.
Okay, so after I put up the wrong scores, I've definitely put up the right stats. Let's go through the stats, Vince.
Well, yes, as you can see there, the Suns are on the left-hand side and we are on the right-hand side, being the away team. So what's interesting here is that the disposal efficiency is exactly the same. And I think it actually flatters them because the amount of disposal yesterday that did not go to targets was unbelievable in my view. I can't believe it's actually 73% each. I thought it might have been something like 63% each. But anyway.
When I was listening to the radio yesterday, in the first quarter, they were really high in their efficiency. And I think that just diminished as it went down and down. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, both teams, I mean, look, in the end, the scoreboard tells the story. There was very little between the two teams, and the stats probably prove it too because disposals, I think we had 12 more kicks or 13 more kicks, and they had one more hand pass. I mean, that's nothing in a game like that. Free kicks were pretty even. Disposal efficiency was exactly the same. Inside 50s. Sorry?
They had more inside 50s, 64 to 51.
Oh, yeah absolutely.
The efficiency is no good for them.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
But the efficiency inside 50, yeah. If you see that, just go back to that previous one. You'll see there that their efficiency inside 50 is only 36%, and ours was just over 50, 55%. So both teams were not very efficient when they took the ball inside 50.
Pretty much of a muchness, isn't it?
Hit-outs, they were a little bit in front. Jared Witts did a good job, but I think our ruckman effectively nullified him. Clearances, they had a little bit more than us. I thought Took Miller just showed how much of a class player he is there in the middle of the ground.
Good footballer.
Centre clearances, 14 to 12, marginally to them. Stoppage clearances as well, marginally to them. So they did match it with us in areas of the game that we normally pride ourselves in. I wouldn't mind betting that a lot of those extra hit-outs and clearances, etc., that these stats show would have been in the first quarter because we just hardly got our hands on the ball at all. But anyway, we managed to nullify them just enough in the end. Next.
As one of the commentators suggested that the Carlton players were still laying on the banana lounges back at the hotel in the first quarter.
Still on their surfboards out there at Surfers Paradise while the game had already started. Yeah. Contested possessions, well, again, we probably shone here a little bit. 25 is a reasonably good number to be in front there, whereas they had the ball on the outside a little bit more with uncontested possessions. Turnovers, they turned it over a little bit more than us. I thought both teams were just as guilty as each other of turning the ball over a lot.
Yeah.
Next, Joe. Marks pretty even. Marks inside 50. They had a little bit more than us. I'm a bit surprised by that, but they tended to lower their eyes a little bit better than we did, I thought. And contested marks is where we had a significant advantage with guys like Charlie Curnow taking a number of contested marks throughout the game.
Yeah, agreed.
Intercepts, again, we just had the edge over them in that area, but not by a lot.
That was mainly in the back line.
Yeah. Next, Joe?
Just hang on. Oh, yeah,
I'm pretty sure there's another one.
Yeah, sorry. There you go.
Are we right? Okay, tackles. Yep. Now, again, we out tackled them overall, 68 to 57, but inside 50, their small forwards did a very good job of tackling inside 50 compared to our boys. And while our small forwards did a good job in contributing to the scoreboard, I mean, you heard before that Martin and Owies and Motlop all kicked 2 goals, 2 each, and all hit the scoreboard well. Their defensive work at times wasn't matching that offensive effort, and
allowed them to run out too easily from the back line.
Yeah, exactly. So, and in general, bounces, they had a couple more bounces than we did, and one percenters. They played
Who
pretty
knows
well. I
what
thought they played pretty well, the Gold Coast. If they used the ball better and they were more efficient with their use of the ball, they probably would have beaten us.
They lacked a
No, I
bit of
agree.
polish in the end.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I think the polish. All right. So,
So
you've gone through
Brandy,
all
what
the
did you
stats.
make of all of that?
Well, that just about summed up what I thought right through the game, to be honest with you. I thought our first quarter, we looked lazy, we looked slow, we looked uninterested. It was almost like they were going to just turn up and win the game, I think. And I said last week that I thought that if they went up to, or if they were going to go up to the Gold Coast and dominate this game, they were kidding themselves. And some of our boys looked like they had their tongues hanging out a few times there. And I thought the Gold Coast, and I did make mention of last week about the acclimatisation of these guys up there because of the wins they had in Darwin and alike. I thought our boys were certainly not switched on when they hit the track, no doubt about that. And that's really concerning going into a final series. We face a side that's got their tail up and they've got a wet sail, which is obviously GWS after demolishing Essendon this weekend. And I think that GWS are certainly going to go in full of confidence. I wouldn't suspect that Carlton would have the degree of confidence that GWS has going into this round.
Yeah, well, we should remind everyone, by the way, that you and I both suspected that Carlton wouldn't have its own way in yesterday's game. We both suspected that it would be a far more close contest than what it was back in early or mid-June. It was when we beat them by 10 goals. And Joe was the one that predicted that we'd win by 10 goals easily, if not 15. And
we should have.
And he said that Gold Coast had nothing to play for, and we had everything to play for. And
was I wrong?
Joe, you were wrong.
So, if I had to be perfectly honest, I think that Damien Hardwick, although he was down here for the Tigers celebration, and I believe that the signing is taking place pretty soon, I think
he would have been keeping a pretty close eye on this game, I would have thought.
Well, I think he'd be quietly buoyed by the fact of the competitiveness of GWS. I thought their work rate was exceptional.
Gold Coast, you mean?
Gold Coast. Gold Coast. Sorry, my mistake. Senior moment. And and it was typified by, at one stage, I think it was Wicks that pushed back and nearly smothered a kick for goal. I think it was no, it wasn't. It was Cottrell in the goal square. And, it was an outstanding effort given the fact that he'd shouldered most of the work all day, and yet he still had the tank to get back and make some sort of contest in the square. And I thought, well, that was typified of the way that Gold Coast actually played. The first quarter, they certainly gave us a football lesson in terms of being able to acclimatise and run quickly at the ground. Did you guys notice that there was, and I'm not sure, it mainly was Carlton players, they seemed to be slipping over a lot. Did you see that?
Yeah,
or not?
I reckon
it's not due to the dew or any humidity. It was a beautiful sunny day. There was very low humidity. It was in the middle of the afternoon, so there was no night dew or anything like that on the ball. I think it's just the soles that they were wearing. They were probably wearing those molded soles.
They watered the ground. They gave it a water an hour before the game.
Oh, really? Okay.
They do that at a lot of the grounds to make it a little bit softer underfoot. But for the life of me, I don't know why people wear those molded soles, because even on good surfaces, you still slip.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, when I was playing, I couldn't wear a molded sole. They just didn't give me the support that I needed. Not that I was all that bloody quick and fleet-footed.
Lightning.
I always had. It didn't matter whether the grounds were hard or whether they were soft. I always had a screw-in stop. And for those of you that are viewing our podcast, a screw-in stop is something that was around in the 70s. I can assure you.
They still make them. They still make them, Brownie. Apparently, every player has a pair, but not many of them choose. They say that they're very hard on the feet with all the running they do. I would know. I've never run that much, but You know.
Well, as I said, I wasn't fleet-footed, Joe, so I can't honestly say that I was doing, the amount of kilometres in a game that some of these boys are doing. However, it did give me the confidence to actually, and not always stay on my feet, but particularly more so, it allowed you to bloody well not slip over.
Well, there you go.
Lou
Did
Foligno is saying he was there, but that they did not water the ground, Joe.
Well, I wasn't there, and I just heard, what's his name? Joey Montagna, who was commentating on Triple M. He said, "Oh no, they apparently watered the ground." So I don't know. I can't comment. I wasn't there. Hey, let's go through some. It's not
like Brownie. It's not like the days out at Moorabbin when you went over to St Kilda and they'd water the ground after it just had 2 inches of rain the night before.
I've said it before, Joe. Sorry, Vince. When the ground was that bloody boggy and everything like that, everyone used to come back to my pace. So I was pretty happy about that.
All right.
Let's go through some of the players. Now, the one I want to talk about is Patrick Cripps.
Yeah.
He looked like he had a big chest guard on under his jumper. Would you play him this week? He's obviously not right.
Oh, look, I suspect that they took him down in the rooms and he was there for a good 20, 25 minutes. So whatever they did down in the rooms was probably not enough to ease the burden of whatever he's carrying in terms of an injury. And I would have. And look, to be perfectly honest with you, he had no impact in the game whatsoever. And I thought that there were other players on the ground that had more of a significant influence on the result than what Patrick Cripps did. Now, having said that, as you know, I've been a really big critic of him during the year, and it's been recent form that he's been able to turn that around. I'm a bit in 6s and 7s here. If he is that injured, I wouldn't put him out there again next week. I would give him a week off and freshen him up for the week after. And I just don't think he's going to make that much of a difference in terms of where we're at. I mean, obviously with Chera and Walsh coming back into the side, that allows us to have a little bit more flexibility in the middle. But because of, he just didn't have an influence on the game.
Well, yeah, the rumour is that Chera, Walsh and the Governor are all going to be fit this week. So,
okay.
So that gives us some interesting food for thought. What did you think of our rucks against Jared Wicks?
Yeah, Jared Wicks and
Chol.
Sorry,
Marbiol Chol.
Marbiol Chol.
Joel. I didn't think he had much of an influence on the game, but Jared Wicks is an outstanding ruckman. He's turned into one of the premier along with Marshall from St Kilda and Gorn. I mean, they'll be all fighting for the All Australian. I think the way that Wicks has played all year. He's a massive unit. Wicks, even when he was playing at Collingwood. And when he went from Collingwood to Gold Coast, he started to really mature and show his ability to be able to ruck. I thought our ruckmen, particularly more so on the centre bounces, I thought they were beaten badly. And around the ground, I thought the Connings work was better. I won't say it was brilliant. It wasn't as good as last week's, but I thought his around the ground effort was better. Although I'll give the points to Wicks for his work around the ground.
At least the Conning took some marks around the ground and took a couple of good contested ones. Whereas I noticed here that Pitnet did not get one mark for the game.
No,
not one.
No, and
he only got the 17 hit outs, whereas I think Witt's got nearly 30. I think.
Yeah. Yeah, the bloke from GWS.
Actually, Witt's got 38. So when you combine 38 with 17 to Pitnet and 16 to the Conning, who's a secondary ruckman, that's almost nullifying. I mean, 38 versus 33 combined. So marginal. I guess they marginally outdid us on the hit outs, but But I think that you're right. Witts was a far more effective ruckman around the ground than either of our two ruckmen.
Yeah, look, we've all said that De Koning's going to come on. He's going to get better and better with his age and things like that. Pitnet, look, even though he competed strongly in the middle, his influence in the game was terrible. And I thought that our midfielders were flat-footed, particularly more so in the first quarter. They looked like they were behind their men. They didn't look like they were going to have an influence out of the middle for clearances, etc., etc. Although I did think in the back of my mind, one of the guys, obviously Hewitt and Paddy Gow had battled on pretty well. Actually, I thought both of them figured.
Yeah.
Now the ruckman with GWS, there's a backup ruckman called Keefe, and he was an ex-Collingwood player as well. Now I just
Lockie Keefe,
yeah, and I just can't think of the ruckman for GWS. Big.
He's actually quite a good ruckman too.
Yes.
They're talking about him like he might be even all Australian. Just trying to remember his name.
Vince.
I'll get it in a second too.
Number
Briggs,
30.
Briggs, number
Briggs.
32.
32.
What's his name? Yeah.
Yeah. He's a mobile big fella, so he's going to test us this week coming into it.
Our viewers aren't exactly very hot on Mark Pitnet. Did Jack Silvani play in the reserves?
Yes, he did.
Because someone says he's only got a few touches in the reserves. Well, to his credit, I mean, he's been out for 4 or 5 weeks, hasn't he? So,
for your information, by the way, the reserves got absolutely smashed. Smashed. Yeah. Oh, ridiculously so. They got outscored 149-22.
Well,
they actually got beaten by 1 point more than what Essendon got beaten by the GWS in the seniors. So, and that was at the same ground that the Carlton seniors played at the Heritage Bank Stadium there on the Gold Coast. So that was the curtain raiser, if you like, to the seniors on Saturday afternoons. And the Carlton supporters there would not have been very impressed with anyone, I don't think,
they're saying
in a performance like that.
Lou's saying he got injured again.
Well, I wouldn't. I mean, you can't say that Silvani's a number one ruckman anyway, so I wouldn't even consider that as an option. I still think we've got to keep Pitnet in the side, just purely and simply because of the contests in and around the centre. Keep him in the side.
The only players that could probably hold their head up a little bit in the reserves was Jackson Binns with 26 possessions. Lockie Cowan from the halfback flank got 22. And Lewis Young also got 22, including 15 marks. So he is doing his best to try and get another senior recall. And also Durden got, I think Sam Durden got 20 possessions and 9 marks in the back line. So I don't think any of them are going to be given a senior recall anytime soon. As you said, Joe, if there's anyone that's going to come into the side, it's injured players coming back from injury, such as Walsh and Chera and possibly Kennedy and McGovern.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, too, that these guys that are racking up the possessions in the twos, if they're getting smashed around like that, then obviously the ball's coming in pretty quickly, and they, gives them every opportunity to be a part of what's going on, even though the score sort of flatters their possessions.
Yeah.
How did you rate Harry Mackay's return?
Slow.
Didn't look fit.
He looked like a fish out of water out there, to be honest. He almost looked out of place to me. He was running around like a headless chook, not really knowing what to do, where to go, where to run. If it wasn't for Charlie bringing him into the game right there at the end, where he took that mark out there near the wing and then wheeled around onto his right foot and kicked it to Harry, it was a beautiful pass. And then Harry could just run into an open goal and kick it. I mean, if it wasn't for that bit of play by Charlie, I dare say Harry would probably have walked off the ground with not much to hang his hat on.
Look, there is one positive. I mean, I've been a critic of him, as you guys know. I would have had him on the side, but there is one positive. His ruck work in and around close to the forward line was better than what it has been. So he's obviously been working on that. I mean, he did look like his Isn't it funny? I think
He got one. He got one hit out, Brownie. One.
Yeah, but it was his body work and stuff like that I thought was better.
Fair enough.
And he wasn't pushed aside like he's normally is. One of the things that one of the commentators did say is the fact that he looked like that he was just not timing his runs correctly, and he's very much a confidence player. So if his confidence is not up, then obviously he's not going to give you very much at all. All it suggests is that it's going to take away a reasonable defender, because the defender's got to obviously be, fairly agile to match him, or else he's going to take it. Now, I probably would have started him on the bench. I don't think I would have started him on the ground against Gold Coast. So I think.
Are we being a bit harsh considering that he's probably been out for since early in the Port Adelaide game? So he effectively didn't play that game really. I think it was early in the first quarter, or midway through the first quarter, that he went off with that knee injury. So he didn't play against Port, and all of the other games after that that we were winning. Collingwood and St Kilda and Melbourne, etc. So could it be that a little bit like the horses, he needed the run, and maybe next week he'll be a bit better?
Yeah, look, it could possibly be, but he could also be like a horse that could be lame as well. And and we all know what happens to lame horses; they shoot them. So realistically, he's probably, I would say, probably 2 good games away from actually, getting some reasonable confidence under his belt. I just didn't think his running and his ability to be able to jump was I think that looked like it was impeded to me.
Do you still think he was getting in Charlie's way? I mean, I noticed a couple of times where they're both flying for the same ball.
Hang on, that was more to do with in the first quarter when they were bombing it in. They weren't lowering their eyes. That's the first thing. And I would suspect that you'd be probably more into the third quarter for mine. They only scored a goal each, Gold Coast and Carlton. And even though Carlton kicked 7 points, but I just thought it looked like a rugby game in the third quarter.
Oh,
it was
disgusting,
just a scrum.
They've got to do something about that. It's not a good spectacle.
Well, the other thing is that as a game of football, you want to see players out and about so that they can actually run onto the ball and be able to create. That just wasn't happening because it was just a slog. It was just an arm wrestle through the third quarter. Did you guys, interestingly enough, see the last quarter where Carlton put 17 players behind in the back line? Now, is that a sign of desperation? Is that a sign where they thought, okay, we've done enough to win the game, now we're just going to try and clog it up and stuff like that?
I think it was a clear sign that we were trying to save the game at that stage. They even threw Charlie Curnow into defence, which ended up becoming a match-winning move, I thought, because he was starting to take marks down there in defence, a bit like Kudafides used to take them when he was saving the day. I remember there was a game we had against West Coast at Princes Park. I think it was in 1996, and I think Kuda took about 18 marks for the day, and he constantly saved us in defence that day as they were bombing it in. He just kept marking everything. And Charlie's last mark there with a minute to go or 30 seconds to go was reminiscent of that. I actually wonder whether Voss has given them now an instruction as to what to do in these situations when we're trying to hold on to a small margin lead, like 4 points, and they now know what to do in terms of how to defend that. And whereas last year we were losing games to Melbourne and Collingwood right at the end there because we didn't know how to defend that situation. Yesterday and against Melbourne, we did learn how to defend these small margins in the last couple of weeks. What do you think of that?
I think it could have backfired very easily because if you've got 16 players in and around bottling it up, and you actually are able to win possession of the ball, which is obviously weighted numbers. But all Gold Coast did was just set up in and around halfback centre. Now that could backfire very quickly by
it
the mere
can.
fact that, you know, they could put it inside 50 very quickly and have a shot on goal.
And in fact, they did and had a shot. They could, as I said, that last shot, if that had gone through, that would have put them in front by a point. So you're right. We did still give them another look at snatching the game, but it's a bit like soccer. You know, sometimes you see teams that, you know, bring all of their players back into their half of the pitch
They call it
in order
parking
to
the
try
bus.
and save a game, parking the bus, as they call it. And, you know, all that happens is that the opposition just come flooding forward and have forward foray after forward foray. And the side that's trying to save the game not even interested in going into attack.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what you're trying to say is that we didn't look interested in going into attack at that stage of the game. We're just trying to save it.
Well, I think that Carlton looks better when they actually keep on attacking and not actually try and go into defensive mode. I just don't think they're clever enough to actually lock it down hard enough to actually save a game. And it's going to be found out if they go into a final series and they think that they're going to win a game in a final series like that. They're kidding themselves because
So what would you have done, Brownie? We're 5 points up. We were 11 points up. They've just kicked a goal. It's now 5 points up, and there's, I think, 2.5 minutes to go on the clock. What would you have done?
Well, I don't disagree with possibly throwing Charlie behind the ball. I've been saying that all year that we could use him in that role. But you still have to have something to kick to when you're actually coming out of defence. So I would have pushed Harry up the ground so that it gives them a target, and then I would have instructed our small forwards and our mids to be able to shark what's coming in. I just don't think that our small forwards or our mids actually created opportunities off packs as well as they had been in previous weeks yesterday.
So the fact that Cripps had a fairly quiet game for his standards diminished our midfield further, apart from not even having Chera or Walsh or Kennedy in there. So we were largely relying on Hewitt, who had a very good game, and Dow, who also had a very good game, to really hold up our midfield. But they also had a very strong midfield on the day too, didn't they? I mean, Miller and Flanders and David Swallow had a really good game too. I mean, these guys
Flanders had the ball on a string in the first quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And is it Rao out of the middle?
And Rao and Anderson as well. Yep.
Anderson didn't really feature all that much. They were actually highlighting that on the commentary about the fact that he had a quiet game. And don't forget, Casbolt didn't really feature in their forward.
Well, Wiedering shut him down completely.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Now, you know, going into next week, guys, I think that we're in a situation here where we've got to be a bit smart on how we approach this because, you know, whilst Gold Coast is a formidable opponent, as I said before, the one that's got the wet sail and is coming home with a head of steam is GWS, and you know they're full of confidence. They don't seem to have very many injuries. You were saying earlier in the commentary about the fact that, you know, the final 8 could be shaped very easily by results from games on the last round. But the other thing that's coming into play here is injuries, and you know, no doubt that Collingwood is now suffering from that thing where earlier in the year they didn't have a great deal of injuries, but now they've got a list probably about a mile long. Look,
things have turned around for Collingwood, that's for sure.
Yeah, I actually heard that who told me? I was talking to Shane O'Sullivan earlier in the week, and he told me that Harry was playing, and I thought, I don't think I would have started him. I really don't. I would have thought they would have sat him down and eased him into the game.
Well, it remains to be seen as to whether we're better or, you know, not as good with both of them in the team. There's lots of opinions about this. I think you'll find that the club is of the opinion that we're a better side and have more flexibility and more options when they're both playing, as opposed to relying just on Charlie. And And I guess the other concern is if one of them happens to go down, whether it be, you take that Port Adelaide game where Harry goes down. If Charlie's not there, well, then who are you going to have as a key position forward?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think you'll find that they'll still persist with both of them in the team.
Yeah. Pete, what do you think about the move of Zach Fisher, who I've been very critical of, to the back line? It seems to have worked.
Well, I think
he's getting the ball anyway.
Well, I think
he's done well. He has done well.
I think what that does is that it takes a lot of pressure off guys like Sard and these types of guys to have to try and take that on. Now, I, along with yourself, Joe, earlier in the year, I thought that Fisher would be goodbye West. But I think now that he's starting to find his feet and he's starting to understand what it's like to actually be an attacking back flanker, I think now he might have just about slotted in nicely into a spot. And he's going to, if he continues the form that he's showing now, McGovern's going to find it very, very hard to get back into the side.
Yeah, I guess. And what about Caleb Marchbank? What do you think about
Well, Caleb Marchbank was more the replacement for McGovern, I would have thought. I think it's those two that are fighting over the same position more than anyone else, aren't they?
I would have thought that Marchbank was covering for Young. But anyway, Newman is obviously still doing the job back there. Wiedering's in reasonably good form. Marchbank just allows guys like Fisher and these guys, because you've got Kemp and you've got Marchbank, you've got Wiedering, you've got Newman, and now you've got Fisher, and then obviously Sard.
And then Sard and Doherty floating through.
Sard and Doherty. Doherty's been rotating through the centre, though. He's been in and around.
He's been needed in the middle because we've had so many injuries to our midfielders.
That's correct. Correct.
Yeah, I think Marchbank. I think you'll find Marchbank's finally playing his 50th game this week against his old side GWS in the final home and away game for the season. So, wish him all the best for a really good game next Sunday. I'm pretty sure he'll hold his position, even if McGovern's available. I think he will play.
I think one of the things that probably still lets Fisher down a little bit is that some of his disposal is still a little bit iffy. And he's, some of the targets, and there was a lot of times that a lot of our players didn't hit targets on yesterday. So that has to improve, particularly more so going into the final series.
Guys, for those of you interested in the round ball, Spain 1, England 0.
Well,
go the Spanish. Can't have the English winning anything. They're the colonies.
Viva la España.
I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to turn up, and this is going to be controversial for all our lady listeners, but wasn't sure whether I was supposed to turn up in black tonight because of the day of mourning. But anyway, no, they didn't have one of them.
Well, they did well. They're ranked 10th in the world. My business partner here is very heavily invested. He's actually also a soccer manager, and they're extremely pleased with where they've got. They didn't think they'd get as far as they did. They thought they'd get to the round of 16. They thought that would be great. So anyway, let's get to the other game.
Isn't it interesting, Joe? The Prime Minister was going to come out and give us a day of the holiday if they'd have won, and we know that you discussed it earlier. And then we had another side called the Diamonds that actually won the World Cup, and there's been
nothing happens.
You hear a bloody thing about them.
That's right.
Hey,
that's okay. They've been sponsored by the Victorian taxpayer.
Anyway, we've got a few questions.
Yeah.
Does Cotterill stay in the team?
Well, Cotterill played his 50th game yesterday and was, in fact, the kicker of our first goal. And he's what did you think of his contribution there, Brownie? Because he's pretty much admired for his tank, isn't he? I mean, he just does so much running. He's quite efficient with his disposal, 81% yesterday, but he only got the 11 touches. What did you think of his game?
Yeah, look, I thought he had a quietish day, but I thought the work that he did do and what he did feature in was admirable. So I would say yes, I'd keep him in the side. The one that probably for mine possibly didn't have as much of an influence was Ollie Hollands. I didn't think his game was all that flash.
I was going to ask you about our wingers because Cottrell's one, Hollands another, and of course Blake Acres is the other one that we should speak about.
They were in and out of the game. Acres figured in some good passages of play. Ollie Hollands he's turned into more of a tackler more than an attacking wingman. I think he seems to be more of a stoppage type wingman than an attacking type wingman. I think Acres his game was admirable. Hollands, as I said, I think he lowered his colours a bit. But then Cottrell, I thought he did enough to warrant, staying in the side.
Even if it's on the bench or something like that. I must admit I had a laugh. Acres often gets much maligned because of his kicking and sometimes boots it out on the full. And yesterday, his very first kick, guess where it went?
On the full.
Straight out of bounds on the full. So anyway, I had to have a chuckle when he did that. But I thought he played a pretty good game. 23 possessions was probably the best of the three wingers anyway.
I think that Acres' game has now progressed so that he can work at both ends of the ground. Hollands seems to cross over. Have you noticed that? He'll start on one.
He does. He crosses
on the other side of the ground.
He's only 18, so he's learning.
Yeah.
He's learning. And last but not least, we haven't mentioned Jordan Boyd. What do people think? Do we bring him in? We don't bring him in?
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't think he played yesterday.
I was saying.
Didn't you say last week about who played? Got injured? Didn't you say he got injured?
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought
Boyd didn't play. Boyd did not play in the VFL, I don't think.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought you said last week he got injured, Joe. But maybe I'm wrong.
No. All I knew, he was coming back from suspension and he was playing in the twos.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the things that I did say last week was that
he played in the twos last week, but I don't think he played yesterday against Gold Coast. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that
I'll
I've
double
been
check.
Happy with.
Double check.
Yeah, one of the things I'm happy with is the fact that there's competitive tension amongst the players.
Oh no, he did. He played. Sorry, I correct myself. Sorry, Brownie, if I can interrupt you there. Boyd actually did play in the reserves against the Gold Coast. And I don't think he covered himself in glory. He only had 7 possessions. In fact, they were all kicks, 1 mark and 1 tackle. That's such poor stats that I venture to. I didn't watch the game. Maybe someone can tell us. Maybe any of our listeners who saw the game can advise us whether he went off injured or anything like that, because that's a very quiet game for Jordan Boyd, I would have thought.
Yeah, I don't think, in answer to your question, Joe, I don't think that Boyd will come back into the side the way that Fisher and Newman and these guys.
Yeah, I think Fisher's taken his spot somehow.
Are you sure on Jordan Boyd? Because Dynamic Hypnotic says he thought he had 26. Maybe that's Jackson Binns had 26.
No, 26 was Jackson Binns. But Binns. Jordan Boyd, number 37, according to my VFL app here, had 7 kicks for the game, and that was it. So I don't know if he got injured or whether he just had a very quiet game. But, when you've been smashed by 127 points and you're playing in defence, clearly he didn't have a very good game.
And you're an AFL player.
And you're an AFL-listed player. That's not real great form to be trying to get your spot back in the senior team. I think Fisher's probably gone past him because he's taken his opportunity, and Boyd, unfortunately for him, got suspended and relinquished his spot in the side, and sometimes that's the way it works out.
Exactly. So, guys, wrapping up yesterday's game, is there anything else you want to say? I'll pass it over to you first, Peter, and then you, Vince, and we'll move on.
Okay.
Well, I think that Carlton's got to start a lot better than what they did against Gold Coast next week. If they don't, then they're going to find themselves with scoreboard pressure. Vince, you said earlier in the commentary about the fact that Gold Coast didn't take their opportunities when they presented themselves, and they, if the game had been drawn, it probably would have been a bloody fitting result, to be honest with you, because it seemed to be quarter by quarter, third quarter an arm wrestle, a rugby match, and then the last quarter it was like, shit, we've got to hang on here or we can't bloody well let this go sort of thing. And that didn't impress me all that much. I have a big question mark going into next week. If that's the sort of attitude that they're going to bring to the game, then sadly they're going to be out of it.
Vince?
Well, I was very wary of if you like, the trip to the Gold Coast scenario. It's amazing how, when you get up on a plane, you go up there and you get out of the plane and that sun starts to beat down on you. It really does give you that holiday feel. And I was just worried that the Carlton players, after being up for so long now, I mean, they are human, and we'd won our previous 8 games, and maybe last week we were a bit lucky, but nevertheless, we're riding on the crest of a wave. And I was always worried that we'd go up there and have a downer, because you can only stay up for so long. And that's why I said what I said last week, Joe. That's why I said I don't think we're going to get it all our own way in this game. And, if we've got some real intestinal fortitude, as they call it, we'll find a way to win. And I did tip us to win by a small margin, but not that small. And, look, a really good quality side would not have kicked 6 goals, 5 in that first quarter. They would have kicked about 8 or 9 goals, because Gold Coast squandered quite a few chances in that first quarter to really put the game beyond doubt, quite frankly. And look, I thought it was a great sign that in the second quarter, thanks to Charlie Curnow, who really, off his own boot, was just remarkable. That was one of the best quarters of football I have ever seen by an individual player, including Anthony Koutafidis in the 1999 preliminary final. He had 4 goals off his own boot. He had another 2 score involvements that quarter. His stats were amazing. If you have a look at what Charlie Curnow did in that second quarter to get us back into the game, you could just see, even after his first goal, he was telling the Carlton players, come on, let's go, let's wake up. And I thought he carried us on his back for the entire match, really. He had quiet patches in the first quarter and he had quiet patches in the third quarter. But then he came to life again in the last quarter, right when we needed it. And he even went down in defence and saved the match for us in the end. I thought it was just the most impactful game of football I've seen by a footballer for many a day. And he was my best player on the ground, even if he did have his quiet patches at times in the first and third quarters, because there's no way that game ends up being a 4-point win without Charlie Curnow's massive input into that game of football. But I take Brownie's point. We can't afford to let sides get off to those sorts of starts, because if we do that in the finals against a Brisbane or against a Melbourne or against a Collingwood or Port Adelaide or anyone else for that matter, we will not win. And hopefully it's just that one blip on our chart that we went up to the Gold Coast and got off to a bit of a sleepy start, but then we woke up and came good.
One of the things that is interesting. One of the things that is interesting, guys, is that two things. One is their recovery is going to be really important after that game, because that would have taken it out of their legs. Even in that last quarter, they looked like that they were just about spent. So the recovery this week is going to be really important, and the way they manage that is the way that is going to have an influence. The next thing was, I don't know whether you picked up on any of the commentary or not on the weekend, but Max Gawn was actually interviewed on SEN, I believe, and he actually said that the Gold Coast trip is actually worse than going to bloody Perth. So he by that he meant exactly what you were referring to before, Vince, when you fly into the Gold Coast, jump off the plane, put the sunnies on, and all of a sudden...
It's 27 degrees.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, whereas in Perth at this time of year, it's still only, 17, 18, 19 degrees if you're lucky. So it still feels like winter at this time of year in Perth. But, you go up to that Gold Coast and you get that bit of tropical air, and, it is a whole new feel.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Vince, because I had a half-hour argument with Rocco yesterday about how we can't afford to give football team starts. Yes, relax, man. It's a game at those 4 quarters, man. I was never in doubt, man. And I'm like, man, better teams don't let you get come back from
No.
40 points down. They
I think
put the foot on the throat.
I think Rocco and a lot of other people on our channel with the Jumper Punch and other shows that we've got would be no doubt celebrating the fact that we've won 9 in a row. Look at all of the positives. Let's not dwell on the negatives and just enjoy the journey, because we're on one hell of a run. After looking like the whole season was over after round 13, what were we? 4.5 wins out of 13 games, and looking for all money like we're going to finish bottom 4, bottom 6. We've completely turned that around and won our last 9 games, and that is something to be celebrated. That is something that we should, really give credit to the players and the coaches in being able to turn the boat around. It's been an enormous performance. We've had winning streaks before, but never on the back of a losing streak in the same season of 6 and what was it, 8 losses out of 9 rounds. I mean, that is just an amazing turnaround. I don't think that's ever been done in the history of football before. I
think one of the things that you highlighted earlier in one of the broadcasts, Vince, is you said that Wiedering's form has a little bit of an influence on how Carlton performs.
It's proportional, isn't it? Isn't it? His form and his influence in games is proportional to us winning or losing.
Well, if you're a
statistics would show that.
Yeah, if you're a statistics man, it would show that, and I agree with that sentiment. And he's probably, but then don't forget he's had good support.
Of course,
you've got guys around
Kemp coming into the back line's been a huge difference for him. I think he plays a lot better with Kemp than he did with Lewis Young. Yeah, and I've even heard stories. I don't know if they're true or not, but I've even heard stories that him and Lewis Young didn't really get along all that well. But look, for whatever the reasons are, he's certainly playing much better football with Kemp down there, and with the support of
Newman.
Marchbank now coming back into the side. Newman's been enormous this year. I reckon he's just about due for almost a top 5 finish in the best and fairest. Newman, the way he's going, maybe even top 3 with a bit of luck. But it's been a very, very good defensive unit. And, I reckon we ought to call Jacob Wiedering the barometer, because he really is the barometer for our side. If he plays well, we win.
All right.
And he was enormous yesterday.
Let's get to the votes. But before we do, we've got some interesting people that watch our show. Have a look at this bloke's name. I don't know who you are. Rat Poison, daughter of a suicide. That's magnificent.
What sort of a name is that on social media?
I don't know, but if that person would like to explain it, I'd be
What did he
happy.
say? What was his comment?
Oh, he's talking about the turnaround.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice of you to join us.
Amazing.
Nice of you to nice of the rat population to join us as well.
There's plenty of rats here. Okay, let's get to the votes. Brownie.
Yeah, I gave 3 votes to Charlie Curnow. I thought Curnow's work, whilst you indicated before, Vince, that he's had quiet periods in the game, I thought he was instrumental on his performance, not only with scoring activity, but scoring involvements and actually carrying the side on his shoulders. I thought that was probably one of the best performances I've seen from a big forward. With the opportunities that were presented to him, he actually was able to take, I think, advantage of those, and also his stature and his confidence is growing week by week. That's not to say that the GWS won't have a plan for it, but as it is now, he's in career best form. And his leadership down there, particularly more so in the forward line. And I think you hit the nail on the head before, Vince, when you said that Harry looks like he's playing second fiddle to him. I thought that Curnow's game yesterday was exceptional. Now, this guy I've been really critical of in the past, and his form of recent times, and I did give him a brownie points last week, as we all know. But this bloke actually deserved 2 votes yesterday. His interception work yesterday, I thought, was very, very good. I don't know whether it's just the mere fact that he's showing the his form or whether he's starting to take more of a senior role in terms of organisation. It was interesting. He didn't take very many kickouts yesterday, but he seemed to be directing traffic around the place. So I thought that was fitting of Wiedering. And one which is probably going to be controversial, but I thought his work yesterday, and he's very important to this side, which is Jack Martin. Now, apologies to Hewitt and apologies to Newman and apologies to Fisher and all those guys, but Jack Martin, there was just some important passages of play that I thought that he actually willed himself to the contest and was able to get some purchase from it. He hit the scoreboard with a couple, and he seems to be getting better and better. And hopefully he's going to have a breakout game very soon where he'll probably kick 5 or 6, purely and simply because of the fact that he's going to be in the right place at the right time. He's clever and he's also very, very smart as a footballer. So Curnow 3, 2 Wiedering and 1 for Jack Martin.
Okay, Vince?
Yep, I like that. For the same reasons that I said earlier, Charlie Curnow, I gave 3 votes. Amazing performance. Jacob Wiedering, we've already spoken about these 2 guys. I gave him 2. And I gave Nick Newman 1. He was enormous as well, yet again. I can't remember the last time he played a bad game. 31 possessions, including 17 kicks, 14 hand passes. He took 9 marks and laid 4 tackles. And, he was just enormous as far as I was concerned in defence. And, look, apologies to a number of players. You could have given your 1 vote to Hewitt, to Fisher. I thought Fisher played a really good game. Paddy Dow, a special mention too. He's getting enormous metres gained, Paddy Dow, with his possessions. Not only is he getting a lot of it now, he's got 24 possessions yesterday, but he's kicking the ball long and kicking it to advantage for our forwards. And I think he could be a vital player going into the finals. And for all the reasons that you said, Brownie, I thought Martin, again, very clever player. When he's playing well, he is a really vital player in that forward line. He's made a big difference since he got that injury and then came back in. He has really hit form and has been a large reason why our forward line is all of a sudden functioning. Special mentions also to our small forwards, Motlop and Owies. I thought that they were both very good. And, I thought also Doherty played a very good game as well. So, look, you could have given your 1 vote to a whole host of players, but I went for Curnow, Wiedering and Newman.
Okay, and I'm controversial. Everyone's saying, how can I leave out Charlie?
Well, yeah. Can you explain that?
Yeah, because it wasn't a 4. All Newman, Hewitt and Wiedering played 4
Yeah, but my
word,
word, the impact he had, gee whiz.
Doesn't matter. I mean...
All right, fair enough. They're your votes. They're your votes,
That's
Joe.
right. They're my votes. And I thought that these guys, if it wasn't for Newman, we wouldn't have got the ball to Wiedering. If it wasn't for to Charlie, if it wasn't for Hewitt keeping his player quiet, I mean, you can't always take the glory players. Pete will tell you that. 18 or 21 players make the team. So if not, we may as well just run out with Charlie Curnow and forget the rest.
No, that's fine. That's fine, Joe. That's fine. In fact, I think you'll find even on the I was watching the Sunday Footy Show this morning, and out of the 4 best players on the ground, I can't remember who it was that assessed the game, but 3 out of the 4 were Gold Coast players.
Yeah,
the only one that they gave, I think the only Carlton player they gave votes to was Hewitt, I think, or was it Wiedering? I can't remember. It wasn't even Curnow.
Yeah, Swallow and Miller would have been featured in those, I would say.
Well, you'd think Swallow and Miller and probably Flanders would have been the 3 best for Gold Coast, and they were tremendous, those 3 players. But yeah, I think they might have given it to. Anyway, if anyone else saw the Sunday Footy Show this morning, send it to us in the comments. Who was the Carlton player that they gave votes to? I think it might have been Hewitt, but I could be wrong.
Okay. I just finished this. So that I gave 3 to Newman, 2 to Hewitt. Newman's having a great season. He just reinvented himself.
Yeah.
George Hewitt, who's seems to have resurrected his career a bit. I mean, he came out with a bang and then sort of went down and then up. And another man who's turned his career around this year is Wiedering. I thought he was really good. So we have a new leader. Charlie Curnow has rocketed to the front.
It just goes to show you can't afford to have games off.
No,
I reckon that's an omen for Nick Dacos. I think he's not going to win the Brownlow based on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chera has got 58. Sam Walsh, 48, who's still out. Doherty, 42. Newman's caught up a little bit. Patrick Cripps. Blake Akers, 20. George Hewitt's come up, 20. Harry Mackay, 16. And Wiedering has made the top
You might
10.
as well put a line underneath the top 5 versus the next 5, because I reckon there's a clear distinction between the top 5 there on that list and the next 5. I think they've been the standout players week in, week out this year, the top 5.
Yeah. It's quite interesting that, have a look, Chera's out injured. Walsh is out injured. Who else?
Well, we
McKay's
thought Doherty
been
was
out
going to be
injured.
missing this week, but he made a remarkable recovery from his knee injury last week.
It was a corky.
It was a corky, was it? Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, Mackay's back as well. So
Just-
now all we need is Chera and Walsh back in the team, and then we can play around with whether we bring in McGovern or whether we bring in Kennedy and Silvani and guys like that.
Isn't it interesting, guys? Just quickly, while we're winning and while they're actually performing, it's harder to pick your votes each week because there is players that are now starting to
My word.
come up in form. So when we were going terribly in the start of the season, it was pretty easy to pick your votes. Now it's bloody apologies to this guy, apologies to that guy, and you can't put them all in.
That's right.
No.
That's a good sign, isn't it?
Hey, Vince.
It is a good sign.
Vince, do you know what time it is?
It's probably time for brownie points, I reckon.
Beautiful kick from Brown. It's a magnificent kick. Look at that. He was inside the centre square when he kicked that for a goal.
Okay. And this week, at great expense to the management, Pete.
Yep. Beautiful.
You
Well,
forgot the symbol. You need a symbol to go.
Yes. No.
That's all I can find on Facebook.
Well,
on
I'll have to find one of those symbols, Brownie, and bring it into my little studio here and go clang.
I will find it, but anyway. So the recipient is
Yes, young Paddy Dow.
Yes,
I know he's a crowd favourite, and everyone loves him and everything like that. And he's served his apprenticeship pretty well this year. He's had, I would say, if they had to give an award for perseverance, I'd say that this bloke should probably be the recipient of that award. But I thought Paddy Dow now he's starting to impose his will in the midfield. I think he's also now starting to take over from Cripps a little bit there. He's not as strong in the body as what Cripps is, but let me tell you, his clearance work, whether it be by foot or hand, whilst sometimes he doesn't hit a target, he at least is in there actually performing quite well. So this week I thought his work not only in the midfield, but he also pushed back into the back line on occasions. He took some telling marks at crucial times of the game. There were some intercept marks he took as well. And I think if it was an all-round performance, the only thing that probably he didn't have was probably scoring involvement. So that's the only thing you can honestly say.
He had 7. He had 7 scoring involvements, Brownie.
Okay.
Vince, I told you, don't send me too many stats because I can't put them all up on the thing.
Oh, right, okay.
So
well, I did send them to you.
I know, but I told you 3 times, don't send me more than 6. And how many did you send me? About 12.
Well, the ones that you haven't put up on screen for the benefit of our viewers.
I'm just going to read them.
Oh, well, go on.
So his key statistics, he had 24 disposals, of which he had 15 kicks, 15 kicks, 9 handballs, a disposal efficiency of 70%, 6 marks, 4 tackles, 7 score involvements, 7 clearances, 5 inside 50s, and 3 rebound 50s. So
my
that's
apologies, my apologies to Paddy on that front. But like I said, I think his work now is starting to really mature, and everyone was screaming at the start of the year as to why they were keeping him there. It's made him hungry. He's grabbed his opportunity with both hands. He could be potentially a future leader of the club, and if his trajectory keeps on going the way that it's going, he will be a very important player for the Carlton Football Club.
Well, let's hope that they give him a contract to reward him for his efforts, his persistence, his patience, and the way he's just conducted himself. He's never whinged, never complained. If he's been a sub for 3 weeks in a row and only played a quarter each time, or whether he's been shoved back to the reserves, he's just continued to put in, done all the right things, and I think he's now being rewarded. A little bit of luck, with a couple of those midfielders going out injured, has opened the door for him, and I think we're all really, really happy for him. He's certainly taken his opportunity with both hands, and I'd love to see him play finals.
I'd like to see him play finals as well. And I think the important thing here, I don't know whether you've noticed or not, guys, but just quickly, every time that he's actually featuring in good passages of play, the whole side seems to lift around him. They seem to love the kid. So he's probably well regarded. And I think you made mention of it early in one of our podcasts, Vince, that he's well regarded around the club. So
yeah. Look, I'll tell you one thing I've noticed with him is that he can really kick the ball quite long to the forwards before the opposition have had a chance to sort of, organise themselves and get their back six exactly where they want. And it's often resulted in scoring opportunities. But the very fact that he's kicked the ball 50 metres in towards Charlie or Harry or whoever else is down there, it almost reminded me of the days of Bradley getting it out of the middle when he used to get it. And he'd often just bang it down long to Kernahan, and it's amazing how many times you end up hitting the scoreboard doing it that way. It's the shortest way home. One
thing that I would caution, if I may, please, the kid's only 18 or 19 years old. I think he's 18.
Who is?
Paddy Dow?
No. He's been in our system now for 6 years. He's been 23 now.
He's 23,
20, he'll be 23, 24 now. Yeah.
Okay, my apologies. But I'm just saying that
he still looks 18, that's for sure.
Well, and I'll be the first to admit, guys, probably up until this year, after you've asked me to come on the podcast, I've watched more football this year than I probably have in 30 years. But anyway, if people
he's actually played over 70 games of football now, Paddy Dow.
Right. Well, one thing that I will make mention of, and I'd like this if the Carlton Football Club are listening to, is give the kids some protection in the middle. Do not smash him around like we've been guilty of it in the past, because they'll end up like another Patrick Cripps, which his body's completely stuffed. So just be cautious of that, please.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
all right.
Good point. All right, so that brings us to next week.
Yes. Now, this is interesting, guys.
Yeah, that's the last game. So it's Carlton versus GWS, Sunday, 26th of August. Marvel
27th of August.
27th, sorry. 6:10. I was looking at the 6:10 p.m. That's rather a weird time to have a game, isn't it?
It is. I think what they're doing here, Joe, if you have a look at that particular day, you'll find that the Sunday, in fact, the three games, which would normally be 1:10, 3:20 and 4:40, have now been scheduled at 12:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time at the Adelaide Oval between Port Adelaide and Richmond. Sydney versus Melbourne at 3:20, which is the usual time for the middle game. And then Carlton and GWS at 6:10. The reason for that is that they wanted each one of those three games to be played without any overlap. So you're not going to have one game starting halfway through another game. And I think that's the main reason for it, because it's the very last day of the home and away, and so many ladder positions are reliant on this, and I think they want to maximise viewers at the end of the day for Channel 7.
Can you imagine all the complainers? Oh, my kids can't go because it's going to finish at 9 o'clock and I've got a school day the next day.
No, Joe, this game will be over by 8:45 and it's still I think at a reasonably acceptable time for kids and families to still get home by about 9:30. I dare say the kids that are going to the football wouldn't be in bed by 9:30 anyway. So, look, I think it's great that they've scheduled this game when they have, because, quite frankly, the result of that game could very well determine not only our position in the final 8, but GWS's and a lot of other teams that are fighting for a position in the 8. So let's hope that it becomes a grandstand finish, as they say, and that it's a really entertaining game by both sides in this last game of the home and away season.
And this one's obviously played at Marvel, correct?
Yes, Marvel Stadium. Right. And of course, we won't be doing our show next Sunday evening at 7:30.
We'll get to that later, Vince. We'll get to that later. Just kind of.
Yeah.
So look, we're running out of time, obviously. So I'm going to throw to each of you. Peter, I want you to give me who's going to win, why are we going to win? Oh yeah, and what changes you're going to make?
Okay. I'll go out on a limb here and I'll say that Carlton will win the game, providing two things. One is that they recover correctly from the trip to the Gold Coast. Bear in mind that the Etihad Stadium being under roof and everything like that, the ground is quite firm. So whatever that's taken out of their legs at the Gold Coast, they've got to recover from that correctly. The other point I was going to make is that in this now, the side will play better at Marvel Stadium than they did at Gold Coast at Heritage Stadium. So I'm tipping that Carlton will win the game. It won't be by a massive margin, but I'm tipping in and around 15 points. The people that I think will be under scrutiny will be Cunningham, because he was subbed out of the game. I think I think I
was going to ask you about him and Chincotta, actually, because we haven't even mentioned them. I thought they were a little disappointing on Saturday.
Well, Chincotta
made a couple of vital mistakes too.
Yes, and he did do some nice things. Whether he'll keep his spot, I'm not sure. They may, in fact, drop Chincotta and bring McGovern in, perhaps, if that's the case.
What I think. That's what I think they might do.
And the other bloke that's got a question mark over the top of him is obviously Pitnet. So we would have to see how he would come up at the end of the week to see whether he's going to feature.
I think they'll need Pitnet and DeConning to both be going up against Briggs, because he's such a good ruckman, that Kieran Briggs. He is a really good ruckman, and I think they're going to need both of them. I can't see us competing in the ruck against him if we've only got one.
Yeah,
and Jack Silvani's not available either. So really, I think probably more for that reason that might save Pitnet's skin.
Yeah. Well, I think the small forwards will keep their positions. I think Motlop will stay in the side. I think Owie will stay in the side. Definitely Jack Martin will be there. They'll obviously pick Harry unless there's something wrong. I'm not sure about Shearer or Walsh. Are they expecting any one of those two to come back this week?
They're expecting. I know they're expecting Shearer. Walsh was a TB advised. So
okay. Well.
They may rest both of them. Remember, we got the bye the week after, so you don't know.
Yeah, well, this would be a very good opportunity to rest the skipper if that's the case. Give Cripps a bloody week off.
Well, we can't go any further up the ladder, right? So all we can do now is preserve our 5th position by winning the game. And when you have a look at the ladder, in fact, it's. I mean, we're a full game ahead of Sydney and 4.5%. So you'd think that even if we lost to GWS and Sydney happens to beat Melbourne, that percentage difference wouldn't be made up by Sydney. So I think we're going to get a home final whether we finish 5th or 6th, whether we win or lose next week. We're going to get a home final, I reckon. So yes, you're right. I think if you know you're going to get a home final, it's a good opportunity to rest guys like Cripps. You're right.
I think Ed Curnow can go out of the side as well. I don't think he had much of an impact in the game.
No.
And I think Chincotta will probably end up being the sub or something like that in the game rather than Curnow. So I'd get rid of him. Interestingly enough, as I said earlier in the podcast, this is not going to be a walk in the park for them. The Giants have got absolutely nothing to lose here. Because
everything to play for, more like.
Absolutely. And they're going to come out even harder than what they have been in previous weeks because they've got a real thing to prove. You know, it's the first time that they've featured for a while now in this sort of environment. So I think they'll be hungry for it. And like I said, for mine, you know, they're two sides that are probably coming in with reasonably good form. One is Brisbane and the other one is the Giants.
Melbourne.
I'll actually dismiss yesterday's game because I think that they just fell across the line. They've been lucky, but the luck's going to run out if they continue to bloody well start the games that they are starting like they did yesterday.
Yeah.
Vince?
Yeah, look, I don't want to go on too much about the game. I agree that if Chera and Walsh and McGovern are available, I would bring all three of them in because I do believe they'd need that hit out before the finals. To bring them in on qualifying final day or elimination final day, I think it's a big risk without any prior run, if you like. I think they all need the run, a bit like Harry needed the run yesterday. I think he'll be better for the run yesterday too, Harry Mackay. So I expect him to play better next week against GWS. So I think the ones that you've got to question their position in the team are Ed Curnow, Chincotta, only because I think he had a fairly ordinary game there. Made a couple of key errors. One in the first quarter actually cost us a goal. Cunningham, he didn't cover himself in glory yesterday. I didn't think Cunningham. He might be a questionable one too. He might even start as a sub. Cottrell also is in that mix of players that, you know, they could decide to leave out and maybe just use as a sub. And he's often played as a sub in the past, Cottrell. So I think you've got to bring in Walsh, Chera and McGovern if they're available. And the other one, of course, as you mentioned, Brownie, is to rest Cripps. That's the other opportunity, to give him a rest before that first final, because you really do want him to be cherry ripe for that elimination final when it comes.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would do. Yep. Rest Cripps and maybe drop Curnow, Chincotta and Cottrell or Cunningham, one or the other, and use one of them as a sub.
Yep. And what about a tip? You've said everything but a tip.
Sorry, my tip. Yeah, I actually think GWS has got a lot to play for next week. I still think we'll get over the line, not by much. I'm tipping Carlton by 8 points. And I still think that GWS will make the finals because I don't think the Doggies are going to beat Geelong.
God, you blokes are negative. I'm going Carlton, 8 goals.
Righto. How did that go for you last week?
How many games have GWS won at Marvel Stadium? Go and do your research. Not many.
Well, they beat us there by about 100 points, and they only had 16 players on the ground once.
Years ago.
That wasn't too long ago.
Different team.
Anyway, Joe, look, I'm not being negative at all. I'm being a realist. What I'm saying is that we are going to get a home final, whether we win or lose this game, whether we go hard or just go at 80%. And generally speaking, when there's no incentive to get injured, this is the other thing. You're trying to tell me that players don't think about getting injured before the finals. Now, Brownie would probably say it's the time that you don't go in hard. It's the time that you go in a little bit half-hearted that you probably will get injured. But human nature is what it is. And I reckon players will be reluctant to go in there
I'm glad I'm saying my
get concussion or get a knee injury or anything like that, because we're playing finals for the first time in 10 years and they will want to be there on elimination final day. So don't be surprised if GWS knocks us off in this game. Do not be surprised. So you
had your say and then you interrupted my say.
No, I hadn't finished having my say.
Yes, you had.
No, I was answering your question.
Listen.
All right, guys.
Do you reckon Michael Voss is going to get happy if they're going half-hearted? And Pete will tell you,
I'm not
the minute
saying
you
he'll
don't
be
put your
happy.
body in is the minute you get hurt. But anyway,
Absolutely.
I'm
I
going
know.
8 goals. You heard
I'm
it
saying
here
8
first.
points.
Get on Sportsbet, 39 over 39 plus, 39.5 plus. Put your house on it. Put Vince's house on it. Put my house on it. Put Brownie's house and his car.
Oh,
And
dear.
can I tell you, you can't lose of the
Yeah,
gambling
okay.
bug,
Yeah.
Or can you?
Now you know why all
as
the
for-
authorities are after Joe.
Yeah.
As for players out and in, I think I agree with you guys. I'd give Patrick Cripps a rest. He did look injured. He's one of our big assets. I don't want him going in and getting even more injured. I would consider dropping Ed Curnow, and this is all reliant on who's fit, because Walsh and Cherrett may not be fit. Yeah, like Vince, the club's really honest with us about injuries, aren't they?
Yeah, of course.
Sam Phillips out for the year, and last year he was playing reserves.
Last week.
Yeah.
And Harry Mackay wasn't meant to be back to the finals, and he played yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. So
look,
this
our calls on some of these players that we would drop was on the basis that Cherra and Walsh and McGovern were available and were going to play. So who would you drop if they were going to play? Naturally, if they're not ready to play, don't play them, and then allow Chincotta and Cunningham and Cottrell to remain in the side if that's the case.
But irrespective who is and who isn't fit, I still would rest Patrick Cripps, right?
Yeah. And drop Ed Curnow. Yes.
Yeah, he looked beaten up. So the guys I'm considering out: Patrick Cripps rested, Ed Curnow, Chincotta, Cunningham, and Hollands. I thought Hollands. I know. Well, he's a first-year player, and he made a few mistakes. He'll get his chance. And then the blokes that you're going to bring in are probably Walsh, Cherra, McGovern, and even Lachlan Fogarty. I thought Fogarty.
Well, they left him out of the side yesterday, Brandy. That was an interesting omission, I thought. I mean, I thought he had a pretty quiet game 2 games ago against St Kilda. I think he only had 4 possessions that day before getting subbed out. But then last week against Melbourne, I thought he had a pretty good game.
Vince, he was injured.
Yeah, I think he didn't look right. He didn't look right. So, yeah.
Yeah, he was injured. So,
all right.
So I would consider bringing him back. Okie dokie. So, the leaderboard, the tipping leaders. I'm the champion.
You see, notice how yet again, Joe, the cheat, got you to give your tip yet again, Brownie, so that he could go exactly the same tip. The last 3 weeks in a row, he's gotten your tip before he's given his tip. No wonder he's still one in front, because he keeps tipping the same team as you do.
As if I was going to pick GWS.
We've got to get a better way to do this next year.
Look who's last. I just want to point out, look who is last.
Forget who's last. What we should look at is the process. The process is all wrong. I've said for weeks now that if you're on top of the leaderboard, you should be giving your tip first.
Okay, I've tipped Carlton. 8 goals.
Yeah, that's all right to say after Brownie gave his tip and I gave mine.
Anyway, I did this for the last 4 weeks, so that was our run home. So we've won them. Round 24, another win.
Well, let's hope we can make it 10 out of 10, eh? It would be a real 10 out of 10 performance to finish off with another win and secure 5th position in a home final. How good would that be at the MCG, regardless of who we play, whether it's St Kilda, whether it's Sydney, whether it's GWS, or whether it's the only other team that can make it now, the Western Bulldogs. It'll be a fantastic final.
Yeah, and Lana's always right. I always pick Carlton. I can't pick the other teams. Anyway, that brings us to the end.
Hang on. You did pick against us 1 week.
Yeah, I know. But that was stupidity. That's the Bangkok Air. Anyway, Pete, thank you once again for being with us.
Thanks, Brownie.
We'll see you next Monday night, and I'll tell the viewers, that's going to be on next Monday
We'll see you Monday, the 28th of August.
Yeah. Hang on, before we go, look at this comment, Pete.
Oh.
Brownie sits back like a gentleman watching the children squabble, but he played in a premiership. That's right. Let's all remember that. Whenever Brownie speaks, we should all listen because he's the one who's been there, done that, and he's got a premiership medal around his neck. And he sleeps with it around his neck every night when he goes to bed.
Not quite. Not quite.
Good on you, Brownie.
All right,
Thanks,
guys.
mate.
All right, see you, Pete.
Have a
Cheers,
good
all the
week.
best.
Go. Good luck with your partner. Hopefully she's
Okay, thanks. Lana's right. I ended up in hospital. See, I got a bad case of
Yes,
Barley
you
Bell
did.
or Bangkok.
Very good point,
So,
Lana. Great to see
yeah.
Lana with us again, as usual. She's a wonderful supporter of our
stalwarts.
show and a lot of other shows, including the Jumper Punch and some of the others that you're going to be mentioning shortly that are coming up this week, Joe.
One of the stalwarts. Hey, Vince, it's time for... Now, as per usual, last week...
Oh, come on. We got pretty close.
Last week,
Yes.
Vince let us down again. He
Oh, goodness.
produced the goods.
Yes, well, we
Look
did
what
produce the
happened.
goods, didn't we?
It ran second.
It ran
Right.
second. I should be backing
ran
all
second.
these for the place, shouldn't I?
It ran second.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that lost your house, send your quotes to Vince Loccisano, care of Blue Sunday. He's more than happy to reimburse all those losing bets.
Yeah, sure.
But Vince, this week you've got a winner, haven't you? And
Well,
where
I
is
think
it?
I've got one that we can comfortably.
Hang on.
Look, its form is very good. Let's have a look at
Hang
what
on.
we're going to back
and this week, Vince's omen bet is
Put it up on screen.
I am.
There it is. Globe
No.
Derby harness. No, it's not. It's
There it is.
Pinjarra harness. That was last week.
Yep.
Pinjarra harness tomorrow, Monday, the 21st of August. Race 8, which I think is being run at 4:19 p.m. in Perth. That's where Pinjarra is, just south of Perth, a couple of hours further south of Perth. So it'll be 2 hours later here. So that'll be, 6:19 p.m. here. So number 2, State of Heaven. Aren't we all in that state at the moment? We're feeling like it's heaven with Carlton winning all these games in a row. So I thought that was an appropriate name for a horse for us. So it's well drawn in barrier 2. It's got a very experienced driver on it, Chris Lewis, champion driver. I think we'll be almost assured of a top 3 spot there. So we're going to try and split the bet a bit this week, Joe.
Now, Vince,
I've
before we do
decided we're
that,
going to go a little bit harder than we have in previous weeks. We're going to put... Well, we got
So we've only got
$50 in the bank, so we're going to bet
$50
half.
in the
We're going to
bank.
bet half of our balance. All right, $5
Yep.
for the win,
Yeah.
$20 for the place.
All right.
I'm very confident about finishing top 3. With a bit of luck,
Yeah.
we might win. So we're going to put a little bit on the win, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll come out in front.
Okay. So that was, let me put that back up again. It
Yep.
was
State of Heaven, number 2 in race
Pinjarra
8
harness.
tomorrow.
That time is 4:19 Perth time. Is that right?
Perth time. That's 4:19
Okay, so that'll-
p.m. in WA.
about
So
6 o'clock Melbourne time.
6:19 p.m. on the eastern seaboard, and obviously half an hour earlier in Adelaide. So, very confident about that one finishing in the top 3 tomorrow.
All right. Okay, everyone. It's time for it's come to that time. Unfortunately, we must leave you. So we hope you've enjoyed our show tonight. Looking forward to this week. Remember to watch the following shows: Tuesday night, 7 p.m. on the Blue Abroad channel. You've got Mars, Paolo, and Rocco doing the Jumper Punch at 7 p.m. Then on
And by the way,
Wednesday-
before you go on from that,
Yep.
don't forget at the end of the Jumper Punch, in that last 10 minutes or so, Rocco will put up a video of Joe
My
and
tours,
his people that run retired working for you tours. And
I'll put a
it's
few up
always a
next
very
week.
entertaining video and very informative and enlightening about the sights and sounds of Thailand and places you can go and visit. So I reckon you ought to actually put that video up on our
I
show,
will.
Joe, on a
I'm
weekly
glad you
basis.
mentioned that.
Might be a bit
I'm
late
glad you
now,
mentioned
seeing the
that.
season's almost over, but maybe from now on you can do that, because
I will.
they really are terrific videos, and some amazing places to visit around Bangkok and other parts of Thailand.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I won't be hosting the show next week, because I will be in the middle of the Andaman Sea with a group of tourists, taking them from Phuket to Railway Beach, which is in Krabi.
Right. That's because
Railway
we've had to
Beach-
shift the show to Monday night. Otherwise, you would have been there for us on Sunday, obviously.
No, I leave Sunday morning. And, I'm not
So
back-
you wouldn't have been
I'm
with
not
us
back
on
till-
Sunday either. Okay.
Yes, I'm not back till the following Sunday. So,
Righto.
and,
So who have we got hosting the show instead?
Well, DJ Rich will be hosting the show. So Richard
DJ Rash, you mean?
DJ
We call him
Rich,
DJ Rash. Richard
Yeah.
Rash Hussein.
Yeah, so he's happy to step in, and he might spin a few tunes.
And what a
he's
fantastic
DJing.
guy he is too. He's a fantastic supporter
Lovely.
of our channel too.
Lovely,
Always
lovely
willing to
chap.
come in and help out whenever we need someone to substitute. So it's great of him to make himself available. Look forward to working
Lovely
with him
chap.
next Monday night. Yeah.
So let's get back. So Tuesday night, 7 p.m. on the Blue Abroad channel, you got the Jumper Punch.
Yep.
Wednesday night at 7 p.m, you've got Forever Rivals on the Jumper Punch channel.
And let me
So-
tell you, Rocco's going to get so stuck into Manny after yet another
Manny.
Collingwood loss. That's their fourth loss in 5 rounds. He's really going to get into it.
Then on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, you got Legends of the Jumper Punch with Mark Porter. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Mark Porter.
Remember Mark Porter? Really
the
good ruckman,
ruckman.
played for Carlton in the late 90s and early 2000s. A really lovely guy, and we look forward to that interview. Very enlightening one too. He was there around the same time that Matty Allen was our ruckman. In fact, his first game was because Justin Madden retired, and of course he also was there when Corey McKernan eventually came to Carlton. So
That's right.
yeah. Well, sorry. In fact, he wasn't at Carlton. He was involved in the swap to get Corey McKernan. So we traded him to North, and North gave us Corey McKernan. So we go into all of that. It's a really interesting story, and a really good interview with Mark Porter. Terrific guy, very, very popular player at Carlton back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yep.
Good. And of course, not next Sunday, but Monday night at 7:30, you will have Blue Sunday on this channel with DJ Rash, Vince, and Peter Brown.
Indeed.
So once again, hang on. Vince does. You got any Cheerios, Vince?
No cheer. Well,
No.
actually, I do. I do have a little Cheerio.
Yeah.
I want to give a big cheerio. She played in a losing grand final last week, and then she got called up by the senior team this week. My daughter Sienna
Really?
played in the senior team at Aberfeldy and the Division 2 team. She'd played 3 or 4 games for them during the year, and they asked her to play, and she played a great game. Unfortunately, another losing side, but a big cheerio to her. She's played 2 excellent grand finals in succession. She didn't know she'd be playing this week, but they actually played at Windy Hill over there in Essendon yesterday, and unfortunately didn't get the chocolates, but she's done herself proud, and with any luck, she might be up there in the best and fairest this year for her team. So, I'm very proud of Sienna, and
what's her
well
name?
done,
Sienna.
sweetheart.
Cheerio, Sienna. I've actually got a Cheerio this week, just one.
Okay.
To my beautiful partner who is watching.
Yes.
If you don't know, my partner is in intensive care. She's got very bad bacterial pneumonia, and she's been in there for 7 days now, 8 days, and not getting any better. They've actually had to cut into her lungs and drain some fluid, which they've done twice. She won't understand the thing that's gone on in this show, but she promised me that she's watching. So, hello, darling. I'll be I'm
all
leaving
the best,
in a minute. I'm leaving in a minute, even though it's raining, and I'll see you soon. So,
all the very best to her as well. Yeah, wish her a speedy recovery.
Yes, me too. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. Blue Sunday on Facebook, the Jumper Punch on YouTube. And on that note, Thank you to Peter and Lannis. Yes, she. I hope she gets better soon. On that note, until next week, this is Joseph Luzza saying goodbye on behalf of Vince Loccisano. And 1, 2, 3.
Go Blues!
Blues. Let us take you out with a beaut. I actually consider this a love ballad.
We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team old Carlton knows. With all the champions they like to send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark Blues.